What is the worst thing you've overheard while pretending to be asleep? In college, woke up to roommate's bed creaking. I shoot up to see what the hell is going on. There I see some woman on her back with her legs full spread eagle, and my roommate just pile driving it like it was his last day on earth. Like a good bro, I quickly lie back down and pretend to be asleep. In between gasps of "Where is your roommate?" awake him. Nor he sleeps through anything. Cut to next morning, I casually get up and turn on my PlayStation 2 and start playing some random game. Roommate Sling gets up and casually comes over and sits next to me. Her. Good morning, my name me. Good morning, her name her. Did you sleep good last night me? Yeah, I can't sleep through anything. As the last word left my mouth, I immediately realize I blew it. She began a huge flurry of slaps at my roommate while cursing at him. He didn't care because he was too busy laughing the whole time. Something like, "She's too old for this. I'm not going to carry her up to bed anymore." And that was the last time I was magically transported from the living room couch to my bedroom. I was a camp counselor. Two girls very much like to make hot or not lists. One of them suggested a male counselor was hot, and the other said he was saying mean things about me behind my back, which made him not hot. Hurt to hear that from my campers, but glad they supported me. My family was staying at a friend's house and had to share a room. My dad comes to bed hammered and says to my mum something along the lines of, "Does it impress you that I'm this drunk and can still perform?" I actually wanted to die. While reading this gave me bystander desire for death. Glad you made it through that one. The person in the bunk under me beating his dick like it owed him money. My mom trying to calm my dad down out of a suicidal fit. My brother and I had been really bad that day, and when he grounded us, we both told him that we hated him and wanted him to go away. He didn't do anything wrong. My brother and I were just a couple of immature little CS. I'm pretty sure blackout drunk at this point, which I had never seen and still haven't saw since then. Walked into our room that night and I pretended to fall asleep. Then he just started these deep, haunting sobs that I'll probably never forget. He stumbled outside and we could hear him begging my mom to let him die and sobbing, "All I've ever wanted in my entire life was to be a better dad than mine." I was only 11 or so, but it effing destroyed my heart. I think that's the time I learned that emotional pain can actually physically hurt. I was hunched over in my bed bawling my eyes out and on the verge of throwing up. I also felt like an a-hole for crying over what we said. My brother was thankfully able to sleep through it all. I think about that once every 2 weeks or so, and I always message him to tell him I love him when I do. I hope he forgot about it. But being a dad myself now, I don't think it's something you totally forget. It might not hurt like it did in the moment, but I don't think you forget, like most heartbreaking things, I guess. Before I got divorced, was laying in bed late, 11 AM or so, on my day off. After a long string of I think 10 or so work days in a row, my ex, who refused to get a job, was in the next room playing a video game, and I heard him say that Mother Fine B is still sleeping. My mom and aunt talking, thinking 10-year-old me was asleep. Aunt, "Little runs and goes is so cute." Mom, "No, he's not very good looking at all." Not me, but my wife heard her boyfriend having sex with her best friend. This was obviously long before we met. My sister got drunk and I heard a loud thud and she blacked out. Two of her friends and my mom and dad were shouting at each other and they were saying to shut up cause they didn't want to wake me up, and they were all crying thinking she was dead, and I couldn't tell my sister I was happy she didn't die. Now I appreciate seeing her every week. My then stepmom's nephews talking about what they would do to me sexually if given the chance. I was 14. They were 17, 19 and 21. Thankfully the window to the motorhome was slightly open, and my dad heard the entire thing. I was scared of boys for a long time after that. That's awful. Unfortunately, I was at the perfect age and stage of my life that it messed me up for a while. Had I been younger, I wouldn't have understood what they meant. Had I been older, I would have been better equipped to understand that all males were not like this. Thankfully, their marriage imploded shortly after. Turns out that essentially their entire family were shags. My dad and stepmom was having a foursome with a couple of their friends. We were at a summer house and they did it in the living room. I felt so uncomfortable eating breakfast the next day. Probably the funniest was on a camping trip with the boys. I have sleep apnea and use a PAP machine. I overheard a couple of my mates talking about smoking a joint and hotboxing me through the air intake of my pap machine. When I was a wee tot, I pretended to be asleep in the family room so I wouldn't have to actually go to bed, and once my parents were distracted, I could keep watching TV. I then got to hear my dad proposition my mom for couch sex. It's been many years so I don't remember exactly what he said, but it was something along the lines of hop on pop. Sleeping over at a friend's house when I was 14. All of us on the floor in living room. Couldn't sleep. Two of my friends, guy and girl, directly next to me start doing freaky things to each other. I was extremely shy and a couple of years younger than them, so I stayed quiet and hoped they'd stop. Had to listen to them for an hour while she made weird moaning squeaky noises and he was singing, in a weird slightly whispery singy voice, Matchbox 20 songs to her while he did whatever he was doing. That was last time I slept over at a friend's house. I wasn't pretending to be asleep per se, but I was well on my way. I was under anesthesia and was fading in and out. I remember closing my eyes to help move things along. I was in a lot of pain because my appendix ruptured. This happened years ago, so I can't remember all of the details. Unfortunately, I remember being moved over to an operating table, and they told me to take my shirt off. I think I heard someone go, "What do you think would happen if I poked her belly button right now?" I was an outie prior to having an appendectomy. They went through my belly button, so that is no longer the case. Anyway, someone, very quickly, responded, "Dude, that is not funny. Remember what happened the last time?" It's possible I was starting to dream, but I remember it making me feel a mix of amusement and anxiety. My mom getting the shit out of her. Update. Thanks for everything, guys. Like I said in a reply, it was 30 years ago. He and my mom were married on off until about 7 years ago when he put her in the hospital and I ended up breaking his nose and a rib. No idea where he is now, but she knows if she ever talks to him again or mentions him she loses a son. Update 2. I noticed some people following me. You really don't want to do that. I'm what you call a very nice a-hole. I do argue about stupid meaningless shit and have a very strong opinion against racism and fascists. I've only posted one original content here. On a class trip, I heard a girl talk badly about me to the other girls in my room, saying I was a retard and too dumb to stand up for myself. She said the only reason she didn't bully me out of the school was because she needed me to help her with my homework. Then my best friend stood up for me. She said that I wasn't dumb and just a bit shy, and then told her to F off. My mum's boyfriend sloppily trying to F my mum all drunkish whilst we're all sharing the same effing hotel room. I was 13. That just brought back a memory for me too. I can't remember how old I was. Somewhere between 10 and 14. Sharing a room on holiday and same thing happened. Was a great holiday until that point. I remember coughing to try and get them to stop, but they didn't. When I was around 8 years old I was supposed to be asleep, but I snuck downstairs to get milk or something. I heard talking going on downstairs, so I stood still and listened. My mom was talking to my brother about how much of a problem I was and how she hated me. She always liked my brother more. I just silently crept back upstairs and cried myself to sleep. Good times. I wasn't pretending to be asleep so much as they assumed I was asleep. My in-laws thought I was still napping after dropping my kid off at school, and they started to stalk me. They said I was a terrible mom. I didn't care about my kids at all and they better buy a cake because I would rather sleep all day than make him a cake. It was his birthday and my god, it was only 10 AM. It doesn't take that long to make and frost a cake for him. Anyways, I cried in my room for 2 hours before they left to buy groceries, i.e. drink themselves into a stupor. Before I got up and made the cake and birthday dinner my child asked for. I didn't tell my husband what they said until a week later because I didn't want to ruin his or my child's day. Had a bunk bed in college and one night my girlfriend and I woke up to my roommate banging some chick on the top bunk. My girlfriend asked me what we should do and I just mumbled just go back to sleep because I figured saying something to them at the moment would make things much more awkward. He still doesn't know. I was at my BF's apartment staying over. His roommate also happened to have some friends who were dating there as well. I was in my BF's room and they were sleeping in the living room. They were definitely effing. Weirdest thing of it all were these literal banging sounds, like someone was hitting the effing wall. the whole time I had to piss like a mother effer, but getting to the bathroom involved walking by the living room and I did not want to risk it. When we woke up the next morning, someone had ripped a chunk out of one of the curtains and the TV remote was snapped in half. To this day I don't wanna know what was going on in there. Roommate's boyfriend and his friend came into my room when they thought I was asleep. It was warm and I was sleeping naked with minimal blanket coverage. I froze and pretended to sleep. They proceeded to talk about my body and how it was anyone's type. Also how easily it was to drug ladies these days. Oh, and also the friends talked about how easy it would be to sell my boyfriend's boat motor that he had stored in the room. Yeah, so they were kicked out and friend became an ex-friend because she was pissed I'd let my boyfriend kick them out.